The Pretoria High Court has authorized the city of Tshwane to proceed with the demolition of several multi-story apartment buildings in Pretoria West. This decision comes after the property owners unlawfully converted existing houses into 3 multi-story structures despite zoning restrictions prohibiting such alterations. The construction was carried out without the necessary building plan approvals from the city of Tshwane. To discuss this further, we are now joined by Kholofelo, who is the Tshwane MMC for corporate and shared services. MMC, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. So, considering that the property developers went ahead with the erection of these multiple-story buildings, even though there was a court order already in place, what do you read into that?
Morning, Aldrin, and thank you for having me. We read into it that people are disrespecting our laws, and we are very grateful for the High Court ruling. This is going to send a strong message to those that do not respect our laws, that our laws are meant to be respected.
Okay, so what happened here?
Well, they just decided that they were going to build this, despite having an interdict against them. They then go further to claim that they had applied and now the application process took so long, so they just carried on. So I think even when you read the court judgment, you can hear that the judge also feels the same disrespect that we are feeling, that despite having an interdict to say, stop what you're doing, they decided to carry on. They even went further to start having tenants living in those houses and charging them money, despite having an interdict against them. So we are grateful that there is this judgment, and fortunately, they are also going to pay for the cost of demolishing these structures.
And more or less, how much would that be?
We haven't worked out the costs yet. We don't really get involved in like the cost of how much it will take. We are going to get our TMPD to be part of that demolition. But the fact is that they will be paying for that demolition order.
All right. I want to know then from the city side and the officials as well. So there is the court interdict and the court order handed down on July the 16th, 2024. The property developers went on to continue with their construction. There were pictures that were taken on the premises on the 28th of August 2024 that show that certain buildings are on the foundation phase. Why couldn't the city stop it back then already, considering that you had this court interdict in your favor?
Well, we did try and stop it, but remember, we have to rely on the law. So it does take time. We've got several of these, actually, Eldrin. To be honest with you, there are many buildings where we have applied for interdicts against them, that they must be demolished, but the justice system does take time. But then when it does work, it eventually gets to work. So we did go on site to take the pictures so that we can show. Because what we have seen is that people will contravene our laws and carry on to do things, and then later on claim that, oh no, we cannot evict, we cannot demolish this. There are people already living here. If they are living here, we must then give them alternative accommodation elsewhere. So that is why we made sure that we are on site. We do take those pictures so that when we do go to court, we are able to show that these people knowingly contravened the laws, and even after we got the interdict, they still carried on doing what they did. And that is why this this judgment was made against them, that they must not only pay for attorneys, but they must also pay for the demolition, because they knew, they just carried on. I mean, it was still when they started the foundation, they just carried on building those structures. And the worst part about this whole thing, Eldrin, is it's people's lives. So they've built buildings that are very unsafe. I mean, when you read the court order, it tells you that you've got stairs that don't even have rails on guiding rails on them, which is a hazard. If you're going to have a 4-story building and it's not safe, that you are putting people's lives at risk. But so that is our concern as a city, that we are, and you are going to see many of these coming through, because the city is now really going out and clamping down on people that are disrespecting our laws. Yeah.
Is the city at all intent on pursuing criminal charges against the property developers? Because, and I just quickly want to lay the foundation for this. We have pressures that we are seeing in the various cities and metros when it comes to residential properties and people wanting access to residential properties that they can actually rent out. Then the property developers come and they build some of these properties, even though you don't have the bulk infrastructure that is able to support necessarily the amount of families that will be moving into such a building, as an example. So which then means that it further then exacerbates some of the challenges that the city is facing and also the quality of life of other citizens.
Absolutely, we will be definitely going after them because remember, this building was not approved. So that means that they were stealing the city's electricity, the city's water, and the city's sewer networks. So definitely there will be criminal charges. But these, I also want to just also stress that, fine, we've got an order against these ones, but there are many others that we are going after. Just like for today, we are going around the city looking at the buildings. We call them bad buildings that we are going to look at. Like you've said, now we've got an issue with housing. So we are going to look at those buildings that we will be either converting into student accommodation, as we know that student accommodation is a big issue across the country, but also looking at low-cost, affordable housing for people, legal, suitably built, low-cost housing for our residents. So we are going to look at those bad buildings. We are going to convert them. Those that need to be demolished will be demolished. Those that are owing, we will be looking at what the options are for the city, whether we are going to expropriate them or whether we are going to compel the owners of the buildings either to do repairs and also pay the city, because we've also got those buildings that are owing a lot of money to the city. But definitely there will be legal action taken against owners of such buildings.
Yeah, and in such a case, when the city takes actions against property developers, or for instance say that we're going to take over certain buildings because they are not safe, what is the state's obligation then in terms of finding alternative accommodation for those people that are occupying those buildings? We know, for instance, with the eviction, sometimes there is an obligation on the state to find the alternative accommodation. But in this particular case, does that also apply?
No, it doesn't apply, because the judge clearly states that from the foundation phase, there was already an interdict. So they just went behind the court's back and the city's back, put people in there who they are charging 2,000 rand. So the city is not at all obligated to find them alternative accommodation, because from the get-go, they already knew that they're not supposed to have tenants.
But with the bad buildings?
No, with the bad buildings, each case will be treated on its merit. So there will be those that are already illegally occupied. It will be up to the court to decide whether the city must find those tenants alternative accommodation or not. And I think it's going to be a collaborative effort between us and our partners. It's either like there's some buildings that belong to the province, some belong to national government, some belong to private to the private sector. So what we will be doing, we will be working collaboratively. But if the court then rules that the city must find alternative accommodation, we will honor that. But also, like, what is important is also we are going to bring in Home Affairs, or we do expect Home Affairs to play a large part, because majority of the buildings that we've inspected at this stage are occupied mainly by illegal foreigners.
Yeah. What's your budget to find the alternative accommodation?
No, we don't have that budget yet. What we've done, that's what I was saying to you, each case is going to be treated on its own merits. What we will do is, when the court, if there is a court interdict against us that before these people can be evicted, you have to secure accommodation for them, we will then have to abide by that. But at this stage, we don't have a court ruling that says we must find alternative accommodation, and we haven't set up that budget for that eventuality.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Kholofelo Morodi is the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services in the city of Tshwane. And this is on the illegal construction of some properties in the inner city, and also the court order that they've received against one of the property developers. Thank you so much for joining us for that conversation.